Who had the zanier convention? How long will Hillary go before calling Trump the next Adolf Hitler? Will Donald Trump leak a sex tape as his October surprise? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, find the answers to these and all of your other pressing election questions right now on Supervillains Anonymous. Where's the music, Steve? Come on, what's going on? So we actually tried to get some we had a couple. I don't know how many clips did you have, Steve? I had one.
I had one, but I was planning on having three, and I'm glad I didn't fuck around with the other two because it didn't work.
So we tried to get some clips going for Google Hangouts is basically how we're doing this, and we couldn't get the sound to work, so we ixnayed on the clips. But do you have any announcements, Steve?
No, I don't.
I have a couple.
Let's hear them.
Subscribe to our channel, damn it. We're still in the teens. 15 subscribers.
Oh,
I keep getting subs on my other channel. I stopped. Now we're doing this on our new channel, obviously. So subscribe, comment, share. Do it. It's your civic duty.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. Tell them to subscribe. So we have 6 very interesting and compelling questions this week about the Trump versus Hillary 2016 phenomenon that everyone is talking about. I watched a bunch of Young Turks coverage of stuff this morning.
I'm sure it was riveting as usual. Did anyone spit in Alex Jones's face?
No, not yet. Well, maybe, I don't know. They could have happened and I just didn't see it. So let's read our questions. What do you think?
Do it.
All right. Number 1, who had the better convention, Republicans or Democrats? Number 2, voter turnout. Does Trump have the winning ground game? Number 3, am I reading the wrong questions? I think I am.
Oh my.
No, I'm not. Okay. Number 3, the Democratic convention was optimistic and patriotic, while the Republican convention was negative all around. Why is this? Number 4, is Donald Trump the next Adolf Hitler? Did Hillary Clinton murder Vince Foster? Who is more likely to be the next Antichrist, Don or Hill? Number 5, will Hillary's shrill voice finally break the glass ceiling? Or will Trump's brash demeanor punch this historical election in the face? Could either the progressives or conservative movement be helped by their respective sides losing this election? Because one of them will lose. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary, number 6, Hillary smiles and points like a 4th grader on her 10th Mountain Dew, while Donald scowls like an angry gym teacher busting vandals in a parking lot. Is in these trying times, who seems more the more competent leader, Trump or Hillary? And I murdered that question. Hopefully we'll do it better the second time.
I'm sure we will.
So shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
All right. That's you to me. So
okay.
Ask away.
Who had the better convention, the Republicans or the Democrats?
Well, for me, being the liberal scum that I am, I thought the Democrats had a better convention because it resonated with me. But on the other hand, I think the Republicans actually did have a decent convention in just Donald Trump spoke, and he sounded a lot more presidential than I think the left is giving him credit for. But the things that I want to talk about basically with the Republicans is I think plagiarism is always interesting to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Make America safe again, make America work again, make America hate again. The only reason the only one that they seem to have any details on is the hate again, right? I mean, how exactly are we going to make America safe again? How are we going to make America work again? So we're very light on the details there. There's always fashionable lock Hillary up, right? So I think maybe, I don't know that Hillary is like the criminal that they're making her out to be, but I don't know what they're going to lock her up for. But and then obviously we have to talk about Lion Ted not endorsing, which is just funny as fuck. I think he got booed off the stage.
He did.
So that's what I want to talk about on the Republican side. On the Democrat side, we have don't feel the burn, fear Trump, right? Which is basically what you can synthesize this whole Bernie phenomenon down to. It's like sooner or later you got to come home to Kansas because Trump is a maniac. You hate him, we hate him. Let's all stick together, right? Mm-hmm. I did like Tim Kaine. I had never heard of. Like he seemed like a total milquetoast pick to me, just because I never heard him speak or anything. But I was actually super impressed with Tim Kaine. I thought he did a great job, and it's only 95% because I'm a white cis male. So and Hillary, I thought was uninspiring as usual because I'm a white cis male. So everything she says just doesn't resonate with me at all.
I found it unbelievably creepy that she kept going, join us, if you want this, then join us. She kept saying join us like it's a fucking cult. The camera is so fucking up in her grill that you can see every single detail. And she really, to me, looks like she's reading. First of all, I can see her eyes moving, like her head is moving in one direction and her eyes are doing the tennis match. And she has this way of nodding her head, kind of like an animatronic bubblehead doll, where she just like, yes, that's the point where you're supposed to be cheering, but nobody's like cheering. It's really bizarre. So her reactions seem rehearsed to me, and they don't seem like they're playing off of the crowd. And it could be TV. It could be that the crowd there, is not mic'd correctly. I don't know how they even do those things, but maybe she is responding to things that are actually taking place that we're not privy to as viewers. And I know in the TV age, I mean, there's been enough of these fuck ups throughout political campaign history that they know, like I think Al Gore did a bunch of sighing in some debates between him and Bush that really hurt him a lot. So now I believe like the campaign managers are on that shit. They're like, mute that fucking mic when my candidate is not talking. So they have ways of compensating for that. I wouldn't be surprised if they have microphones in the crowd so the TV audience can hear the reaction of the crowd. But I didn't hear much reaction at the Democratic convention to Hillary. And maybe I am just a white cis male. Maybe that's why it doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel inspired. I think she is saying a lot of the correct things to appeal to me, but they're just not appealing to me. So I don't think that it's because you're a white cis male, even though you are. She is truly a poor public speaker. And if you watch my channel, you know that I'm not the greatest public speaker. If you watch this channel,
you just heard me murder reading those fucking questions. So I'm terrible.
The difference is you and I aren't running for president. And like it or not, a quality you need to be president, or to win election, I should say, more so, is to be a good public speaker. Now, maybe she can win without it. I'm sure, it looks like she's going to win as of now anyways, but she's just a bad public speaker. And shut up. That's not because she's a woman, and it's not me being sexist. There are plenty of good women public speakers. Sarah Palin, before she completely lost her mind, was a good speaker, even though she was stupid and everything. But Hillary just, like, she sounds like she's reading off and like she just cannot deliver a good performance in that regard. Now, if you, as far as who had the better convention, most people.
Your mic is a little hot, just to let you know.
Okay. I'll back up for a minute. How about that?
That works.
Okay. Most people in the press, regardless liberal or conservative, basically agree that the Democrats had a better run convention, which was interesting because Trump said that, it's going to be the greatest show you've ever seen and you would think because that's his shtick, he's a promoter, he puts on events, they would have
a super duper convention, but it was anything but. In fact, the week after, he tried to distance himself from it. He basically said,
hilarious.
he's like, I had nothing to do with that. I just came in the last minute. But it was,
he obviously didn't learn anything from George Bush lowering expectations, did he?
No, he didn't. But yeah, it was just, it was like, it was, as far as conventions go, it wasn't very good. Whereas the Democrats did everything by the book, and the press is applauding them for that. Now, what we've learned from this election is that you can do pretty much everything by the book right, and Donald Trump will still probably beat you. So,
oh my God,
does it matter that the convention, the press thinks the Democrats had a better convention? I don't think so. Now, if you're looking for substantive solutions at a convention, then you come to the wrong place. But even in that regard, like, Donald Trump's convention was lacking. They didn't list like any of his accomplishments except for, I think his son Eric Trump talked about like, oh well, he worked on this project and it went well. It was just like speaker after speaker after speaker saying like, this is a problem and Donald Trump will fix it. How he's going to fix it, we don't know, but he's going to fix it. They didn't even give an idea of what a fixed version of that thing would look like. Like, okay, at the Democratic convention, they don't give specifics like, here's the bill, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this and this. But they offer what they say healthcare is broken. Well, what does fixed healthcare look like? It means we have a public option.
They did come out strong against NRA, and they did also protect Planned Parenthood. They did have some specifics in there.
But as far as like an actual, like, I don't know, maybe that's still like very shallow to me. Isn't like a policy discussion is very deep, shouldn't it be? But that's not what a convention is for.
No.
So I wouldn't necessarily hold that against them. But here's the thing. One thing that people said was the Republican convention was very sour and it was a bad mood all around. Whereas the Democratic convention was, this is what America can achieve. This is, we're going to be, it was very patriotic. The thing is, like, so many people are pessimistic about the country, and the right track, wrong track is bad. Now that's always, more people always think the country's on the wrong track, but it seems like this election in particular, saying that things are great is not going to resonate with especially white working class voters in key swing states. And I think painting a bad mood for the country and saying that Donald Trump can fix it is the best move he could have made. So I honestly think that the Republicans had a better convention insofar as what they were supposed to achieve.
Yeah, well, the numbers coming out of that convention were pretty epic. I mean, there were a few polls that came out with Trump actually ahead of Hillary Clinton, and then I guess Trump opened his fucking big fat mouth and screwed it up. So I haven't checked the polls this morning. Have you looked at any of the polls, like where we're at now? The last thing I saw on television was if there's a four-way race, Hillary's up by 8, because I guess Gary Johnson will actually take votes away from Donald Trump, which makes sense.
Yeah, I got a push notice this morning that said Hillary was up by 8.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the plagiarism. What much to do about nothing, or is the European supermodel just really desperate to be first lady and wants to look as first lady like as humanly possible?
Yeah, I guess look at the part, be the part, right?
Yeah, exactly. Fake it till you make it.
Right. She did not write her own speech. Politicians basically never.
Totally, but she double binded herself. It's the same thing that you will see Donald Trump do in the debate. A double bind is the perfect way to fuck somebody over. She came out and said, I wrote this speech, so there was no backing up, and then the speech turns out to be plagiarism. So damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, like, if Donald Trump has been slacking on a campaign, he's got a shoestring operation because he doesn't think he needs a traditional operation. And this is one thing that a traditional campaign would have caught. They would have had 1 million people going over this shit, making sure there's no plagiarism, making sure that every word is fine-tuned, making sure that the message is absolutely what it needs to be and free of controversy. The fact that they weren't able to catch obvious plagiarism goes to show that there are liabilities entailed in not having a real campaign. And, to what extent will there be consequences for this? I mean, to what extent are there consequences for anything Trump does or anything associated with his campaign? So, I mean, I think it shows his really incompetence on the part of his campaign. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. None of that has ever mattered. Of all the controversies that were supposed to hurt him, none of them have. Why should this one?
Yeah. It's just another thing for us to forget, right? I don't think anybody's going to remember the plagiarism thing. So I don't know that it ultimately hurts him. So do you have this whole idea? I guess they did a whole day of Make America Safe Again, and they did a whole day of Make America Work Again. Were those good moves or just total nonsense?
The Make America Work Again, they didn't talk about usually at a Republican convention, it's like, let's lift the red tape of regulation. Let's, harvest our own energy, this and that and the other. The usual boilerplate conservative talking points on economics, which I'm actually in favor of for the most part. It was largely just railing against Islamic terrorism, though, and how Hillary Clinton refuses to call it that. Their night supposedly devoted to jobs was hardly talked about jobs. So, I mean, it's a good idea in principle, but they didn't live up to it.
Yeah. So lock Hillary up. That's because she won't say Islam. It's part of it's law now that you have to say radical Islamic terrorism, right? That's why they're chanting lock Hillary up, because she won't say it.
I mean, remember, you're talking about Chris Christie's witch trial against her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he leveled a number of charges at her, and the lock her up, I think, was largely devoted to the email scandal. They think she's guilty of that. The fact that she was exonerated by a conservative or a Republican, James Comey, head of the FBI, a Republican appointee, just proves how deep
yes.
No, he wasn't. He was an Obama appointee, but he's a Republican. He's a registered Republican. Yeah, it just shows how deep the conspiracy goes.
Well, and just how powerful Hillary Clinton is as well.
I know.
I mean, we're talking dictator level here.
Yeah. There's it's going to be ugly, this election, even if Donald Trump loses. So I was listening to Roger Stone. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. He was on Milo Yiannopoulos' podcast. And remember last show, I said Milo Yiannopoulos would be happy that he lost his Twitter account.
I did hear him bragging about
it. He is happy. I was right. I was totally right about that.
He's like, I fucking hated Twitter anyway.
And so Roger Stone was on his podcast, and Roger Stone basically goes, every election ever is rigged. Somebody buys it. And so Donald Trump is winning now. So if he loses, it'll be rigged against him. And he should say that. And I think it was yesterday, Donald Trump did say that. He says, I think the election is going to be rigged against me. So these people who think that there's this gigantic conspiracy keeping Hillary Clinton out of prison, who are not going to take their Donald Trump losing kindly. It doesn't matter how much he loses by. It'll be fraudulent if he loses. Of course, if he wins, then it'll be good. Then the results will be acceptable. But if he loses, they'll refuse to accept Hillary Clinton as president. They'll refuse to accept the legitimacy of the results, which is troubling. And it's going to make for a very difficult initial or start to a presidency for Hillary Clinton.
Why don't people just open their eyes? Like, why are people so hateful of the other side now? Why is there so much fucking hatred?
I don't know. People,
there's just as much on our side. I mean, our
side.
Well, I mean, okay, my side. I don't know. I feel I innately understand the liberal perspective, even though I don't
I mean, I can see past it now. It's really easy to see past it. You just have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have to first of all assume that they're sincere in their position and they're not just lying to you or willful hypocrites. On our side, I mean, Trump is. I mean, people are fucking shaking in their boots. They're scared to death of Trump. I mean, there's all kinds of arguments that you can make that Trump is not really going to be the actual president. He's going to be more like a Manchurian type candidate, and we're going to get into those later questions. But I mean, I believe in I have faith in the institutions of the United States to protect us from some wackadoodle. So I'm not terrified, and most of that is because I'm a white cis male and he's a white cis male.
One of the clips I was going to use was a montage I had put together of Donald Trump supporters at his convention saying that if he didn't get elected, then the country's going downhill. Or the country will be over, excuse me.
Oh, the country's like barely made it from Obama, right? We've been dragged through the mud for 8 years.
And as people have outsized ideas of how powerful the president is, and even though the executive branch power has grown enormously, I still don't think that it can sink the country on its own. So
yeah,
I think even though I think Donald Trump would be a terrible president, I don't think that he can destroy the country single-handedly. I think he can do a lot of damage, and I think it would hurt the country ultimately, but I don't think it's the end.
If Obama doesn't even have the power to get his Supreme Court nominee approved, how is Donald Trump going to use our military to start invading random countries?
Yeah, he doesn't have the authority to do that. He doesn't appreciate that. A lot of his supporters probably don't appreciate that he doesn't have the authority, but he doesn't. And
right.
And there's not a whole lot he can do about that.
So on the Democratic side, you were a Bernie guy. What do you feel about the don't feel the burn, fear the Trump?
I mean, to a certain extent, it's the same thing. You still have these people who don't accept the legitimacy of the results.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're just as conspiracy theorists about this stuff.
The fact that Bernie is now in on the conspiracy to bury him just shows how deep the conspiracy runs. Look, I think
how did they incept that into him? Does Hillary Clinton have dream people next to Bernie?
Must be. A lot of people think he sold out, and that he left the Democratic Party after the convention, which is funny. But the fact that he endorsed her, just it goes to show that he caved, and that maybe he wasn't the Messiah they want. But the ideas that he stood for, the movement that he stood for, they still think has purchase. And those are the people who will probably vote for Jill Stein. So
young people don't fucking vote. I've been voting my whole life, and I've been alone in that. None of my friends have voted. Some of them, now still as adults don't vote. So, I mean, young people don't fucking vote. So when young people get pissed off about how things are, I just say, yeah, well, young people don't fucking vote.
Another thing that is true on the Democratic side that was true on the Republican side, again, is the power of the presidency. It exists in the liberal mind, this idea that if the President Obama had just made a few more rousing speeches and just fought a little harder, then he would have been able to get many more progressive things done. Like he could have gotten a single payer if he had just taken the Republicans to the mat, if he had just made a few more exciting addresses to the nation. That's what progressives believe, but they don't understand how difficult it is to usher legislation through on the federal level. It doesn't matter if the public option got 80%. That's irrelevant.
Totally. The Supreme Court pick says it all for me.
Yeah.
I mean, he has every right to put another justice on the Supreme Court, correct?
But the Republicans have the right.
It is his duty and obligation to do it, correct?
He can't even get a hearing. That is ridiculous. Republicans don't have to vote for him, but they don't have to vote to approve. But the fact that he can't even get a hearing is ridiculous. But yeah, and so the the TYT people, the far left people, they think that President Obama has just sold them down the river in favor of corporations and whatever. And it's not to say that he doesn't not, if you apply my double negative, favor corporations or his donor interests on some level, but the idea that he could have done so many more liberal things if he had just willed it is a canard. And so the idea that being pragmatic, as Bernie Sanders was, and as Hillary Clinton often is tantamount to just being soulless, is nonsense.
So what about Tim Kaine? What did you think of him? You're a white cis male, right?
I am.
Loved him.
He's boring.
You didn't like him?
He's whatever. I can't even remember if I watched his speech or not. That's how
you must not. You must
was.
not have watched it then, because I thought he was one of the better speakers. So, and he was very folksy. Remind me a lot of Bill Clinton.
Oh, okay.
Which seems that, I don't know, maybe the Vince Foster story, right? Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton. You never know. They could be.
I think one of the characteristics Hillary Clinton wanted in a vice president is someone who wouldn't overshadow her. So, and then she's boring and shrill as is, so she had to pick somebody even more boring than she is. So that's why he got milquetoast Tim Kaine. Now, another reason she picked him is because he comes from a state with a Democratic governor.
That's probably the only reason.
Yeah. Whereas, other people, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, they all have Republican governors in their states, which means if they won, then the governor will be able to pick their successor, at least to continue the rest of their term out. So it strikes me it's as a sign of confidence that she thinks she's going to win, that she can plan that far ahead. She doesn't need to pick somebody more exciting who might help her ticket. She can pick someone who is going to be better for her in the long run. She's counting on winning.
Yeah, definitely. She's been counting on winning for a long time.
I think you're right.
So let's move on to number 2. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Voter turnout. Does Trump have a winning ground game?
No.
Okay, let's move on to number 3.
Yeah, he has no traditional campaign, to my knowledge. And these things are not, you can't erect them overnight.
I know the polls are the polls, but getting people there.
Imagine how much better he were doing if he actually did some of the basics. I feel like he could win this easily. Not easily, but he could make things a lot easier for himself if he just did these basics in campaigning. If these basics in door-to-door operations of getting out the vote. As far as the ground game goes, he doesn't really have any. Now, the reason they do rallies in states is to increase turnout. They want to get the local people excited for coming out to vote for President Trump or President Clinton or whoever. So he and his rallies are huge, and he attracts lots of people to them, and he gets lots of attention for them. So he's got that going for him. But the thing is, a lot of people think that his negativity and the negativity of the campaign in general is going to stifle turnout. And I think that's what he wants to have happen. He wants a low turnout election. Whether he knows he wants that or not, whether he knows that's in his best interest or not, I'm not sure. But a low turnout, most people think would help him and would help Republicans down ticket.
Seems like it always helps them.
Yeah.
Low turnout tends to favor Republicans. Republicans are more conscientious, which that's a term they use in psychology a lot, not necessarily the layman conscientious. I know some liberal heads are exploding, but they are more, I guess an analogy would kind of be more anal retentive. They're gonna show up at the polls and vote. They're gonna clean out the car. They're gonna clean the house. They're just more conscientious in that way, and that's helpful when you got to get people to the polls.
Definitely.
So, yeah, Democrats are the election was today. Really? Forgot about that.
Democrats especially the young people. You mentioned how young people don't vote. Democrats seem to be more motivated by movement people, like the Barack Obamas, the Bernie Sanders, and the rest. You don't have movements congressional candidates. You don't have movements city hall people. That's why Democrats struggle on the down ballot. One of the reasons why Democrats struggle on the down ballot more in presidential elections. They do well in presidential elections, and the down ticket people do well in turn. But on the off year elections, they don't do so hot for the reasons I think you've laid out.
Yeah. Also, there's the question of voting is your civic duty and whatnot. And, on the liberal side, they tend to be nonconformists, like, fuck my civic duty. Like a lot of liberals, like liberal people in all of their policy and worldview and whatnot, they like don't vote in protest. When I honestly, a lot of times just think, yeah, well, you're just lazy. Like you don't want to vote because you're lazy. So, but the interesting thing about the ground game is so much of it now is a social media game. And I noticed I'm friends with a bunch of Bernie people on Facebook. And I was constantly getting messages from Bernie people about, the election is today, have you registered to vote, that kind of thing. So knocking on doors in the traditional sense is not necessarily even happening. And I'm wondering, I read a book about elections. I've talked to it a couple of times and how modern elections are won. And I know Hillary definitely has that social media ground game down because she basically inherited from Barack Obama. It's one of the ways that Barack Obama totally slaughtered Mitt Romney. And they had none of this stuff. I had read some stuff that it looked like the Republicans were kind of getting it together but then Trump steps in, and I think he has literally like 8 people working for him, and Hillary has like 8,000. It's ridiculous. I'm being hyperbolic on the numbers, but they are approaching this in very different ways. Like Trump seems to be, and I wonder if it's just like the egotistical factor that he thinks, he's going to win literally single-handedly on the strength of his own personality. I find that hard to believe, but I don't know. You never know. These are weird times.
Trump's social media outreach is his Twitter.
I know it's crazy, and it honestly sometimes does more harm than good. So
his personal Twitter that he types himself. Hillary Clinton does not type every tweet she does, even the ones that say HRC.
Yeah. Oh, really? So she has. Oh, okay.
I bet, and Barack Obama did the same. I bet they didn't even type them themselves. I bet they're just like, all right, tell some fucking intern, say this, and then put my initials on it, so people think I actually wrote it. I guarantee they don't fucking tweet it themselves. Yes, but his idea is, he's even said this. Literally, he said, I can tweet something out, then every news media outlet will cover it. So why the hell?
Because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is retarded.
Well, and there's no such thing as bad press as far as AC is concerned. So why not run your campaign like that?
We are engaged in an interesting social experiment here to find out if there really is any such thing as bad press.
I wanted to ask you a question that I thought of when I was in the drive-thru for Taco Bell last night. I don't know why it popped there, but is it possible that Donald Trump is running his own little experiment, and he's seen how far he can push the envelope and see if he can still get elected without losing election? Like, he doesn't really give a shit whether he gets elected or not. He's just like, I'm going to do as much dumb shit as possible and see if I can really test the limits of tolerance.
Hillary Clinton, they all say, has orchestrated her entire life. Like, she was planning to run for president at 6 years old, right? And did all the right things, Secretary of State on the Senate Armed Services Committee, like everything she's done, like going after healthcare as first lady, like all that stuff. I don't think Donald Trump thinks 5 fucking minutes ahead, to be honest with you. I think he completely just reacts, and he has a wealth of status that he has always had. Even as a kid, his dad was completely wealthy, so he could get away with anything. So he's just kind of cultivated that that all instinct type situation. I mean, a guy who's, how many bankruptcies has he had? Like,
I think his businesses have filed 3, I believe.
yeah, people who file bankruptcies, they're not thinking ahead.
Right.
Like even the thing, like the thing that has tanked his numbers a little bit before he actually got the nomination, the Trump University thing. Like, do you think Trump actually knew what was going on? Because I think Trump University was pretty obviously a scam. Do you think Trump actually knew that it was a scam, or do you think Trump was just like this delusional egomaniac, like, oh yeah, of course, this is going to be great, they're really learning how I do things, it seems to me that maybe he simple-mindedly did believe it, that it was like a real thing.
I think he stamps his name on a bunch of shit. Doesn't really care if it works out or not. If he thinks he can make money off of it, then he'll put his name on it. Now, because for whatever reason, the thing. Okay, the clip I was going to play was him answering the question whether or not he has a relationship with Vladimir Putin, whether or not he's met him. It's like it's like 10 different interviews and him giving completely different answers to that question.
Wow.
Either he's just making this up as he goes along and doesn't give a shit, or he is a pathological liar, or he just realizes that he can say anything and it doesn't really matter. I don't know which one is true, and I don't know which one I find the most frightening.
I think he's potentially a pathological liar. I think he honestly believes what he is saying, and that's why he's such a good liar. Because he honestly thinks this shit is true, and he lives in a world where nobody's going to call him on it because he has so much fucking status. Okay. He has so much status.
Here's the thing: where do you? All right, if I told you, say the words New York real estate developer, who comes to mind?
Yeah, Donald Trump.
Here's the thing. I was listening to Gary Trudeau, who he does that one comic strip.
Yeah. He's there's another guy on YouTube making a bunch of videos based off of his. I guess he's been doing a lot of commentary on this election.
Yeah, the Doonesbury guy, Gary Trudeau. I guess he lived in New York when Donald Trump was first coming up. He's not like anywhere near the biggest real estate developer in New York.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, totally.
And apparently, like but he's like been so flamboyant and he's done so many different things to get his name bigger than everybody. So like, yeah, he's done some nice projects and all that, but most of it has just been him advancing his name, and that's how he's achieved the status he has. He's not even the best at what he does in the market where he does it, but he's by far the most famous person who is in that respective area. So, and I think he thinks, well, I can just become president that way too. I don't even need to be the best. I don't need to know the most. I just need to get the best marketing done. So,
unfortunately, I think he's right.
It's worked so far. Will it work without a very traditional campaign? I guess we'll see.
I wonder if Hillary will double bind him. Maybe she will, and she'll come off being a real human being. We'll see.
We'll see. Who knows if it'll even matter? I Trump's statement about how he could kill somebody and his supporters wouldn't care is becoming more and more true to me.
He's got to win. He's got to win the independence, though. I constantly tell this to people. I'm like, you made up your mind who you were going to vote for 2 years ago. Okay, the people who matter are the people who are going to make up their mind in the last 15 minutes.
Yeah,
they're the ones that decide elections. What's that?
People are fucking idiots. Like they're exactly the people who would vote for Trump.
Yeah, no, they ask their gut. They go in and they ask their gut. They say, who do I want to look at for the next 4 years? A lot of people too, and this is another reason why in our modern elections, the polling is so important. A lot of people, they just want to vote for the winner. Yep. Like they don't necessarily care who's going to win. They want to be able to say, I voted for that guy. So, Hillary's 8 points up. I'm going to vote for Hillary so I can vote for the winner. Right. It's like there are people out there that honestly, they don't follow politics. They don't know who
who has what policies, or they say they tell themselves, here's same boss, new boss, same as the old boss. Let's vote for the one that's easier to look at or sounds better. So,
according to Cenk Uygur, that's why Bernie lost, because the media tricked people into thinking that Hillary was winning.
Well, they have a point. I don't know. Let's. You want to move on to number 3?
Sure.
Okay. And that's you to me, right?
Yes, sir. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have told you I was voting for Gary Johnson, but there's that. Okay.
Are you voting for? You're voting for Gary Johnson?
Yeah.
You're in a. Are you in a swing state?
Not really. Minnesota's not really a swing state.
Yeah. I'm in a totally non-swing state. It doesn't matter who the fuck I vote for.
Okay. The Democratic convention was optimistic and patriotic, while the Republican convention was negative all around. Why is this? Traditionally, that's not how these were. Okay.
Because Reagan was like Morning in America and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they are traditionally optimistic. That you kind of threw among, like, I had thought about this, and I mean, have you ever read the book The Evolutionary Origins of Our Political Nature, The Evolutionary Origins of What Divides Us? It's by Avi Tishman.
No.
Okay. So according to that book, he basically like dials back why conservatives are conservatives and why liberals are liberals, basically based on evolutionary influences, which, me, I love evolution. Anything tied to evolution, I'm like, yes, that's gotta be it. And there's a few metrics that he throws out that are definitely I'm seeing play out in this election. Conservatives rank very high on something they call belief in a dangerous world. Liberals seem to rank really low on this metric. They tend to think human nature is, everybody's good, it's circumstance that makes us do bad things. But at our hearts, all human beings want to be beautiful angels. So, and Republicans don't really believe this at all. They rank super high on this thing called belief in a dangerous world. So in that context, the Republican convention makes complete sense, because Republicans are going to respond to this, crime is going up and ISIS is coming to get us and Hillary wants to take away your guns, right? That's a narrative that's really going to resonate with anyone who has this ranks high in this belief in a dangerous world metric. And not only does it motivate their rank and file, it motivates their leaders too. They actually believe this. I mean, you can see this playing out, if you watch C-SPAN for 15 minutes, like all the Republicans march out and, it's ISIS, 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 and fear, fear, fear. And the world, everyone is out to get us, where, liberals, tend to be more optimistic by their very nature. So I think that definitely played into the split in the two conventions. I'm curious though, because you did bring up like Morning in America, and I guess Reagan was very optimistic, and that totally goes against this idea that I'm putting forward. So I'm curious why there is a discrepancy there.
Maybe that's a really interesting theory you put out there. Maybe it's the world that's changed around us that has made them respond in these different ways. Because I was listening to Fareed Zakaria, and he was talking about the 1980 Republican convention, which is the one that nominated Ronald Reagan, and he was talking about Jeane Kirkpatrick's speech. She was the one, I think she served as the first female secretary.
Steve.
What?
We lost it for a second there.
Oh.
I was just whispering into the nothingness.
That was really creepy. I could hear you.
Steve, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're scaring me, man. Okay. I was listening to Freeze.
ISIS wants to take away your guns.
You're terrifying me, dude. In 1980, the convention where they nominated Ronald Reagan, I heard Freed Zakaria compare that convention to this Democrats convention. And at that convention, Jean Kirkpatrick gave a speech where she coined the idea of the blame America first people. Apparently back then, I was not alive back then, but apparently whenever there was Soviet aggression or whenever there was, Marxist revolution somewhere, the liberals would blame America first. It was somehow America's fault. Doesn't matter how far away it was. Doesn't matter what exactly was going on the ground. It must have been because America did something bad. And now Fareed Zakaria made the point that that's very similar to what Donald Trump does. It must be why do we have a trade deficit with China? It must be because America failed in some ways, because our leaders are stupid. And they negotiate poor deals. Why whatever the problem is, it's because we have idiots in charge. So maybe it's the landscape that's changed, but it's like maybe it's the demographics that have changed. I don't know. It's because the Democrats being very optimistic were I'm trying to square it with your interesting idea.
I think I figured it out. I honestly do.
Let's hear it.
So this belief in a dangerous world obviously appeals to Republicans, but Republicans are totally in group. Like that's their thing. Like they're going to vote for their guy no matter what. So what Reagan did was actually brilliant, because Reagan, by doing the Morning in America and doing the optimistic thing, which I think even George Bush did a little bit of that when he coined the term compassionate conservative. He said, I know that I'm going to get my people. Like my people are going to vote for me because I have an R next to my name. Those people are the ones that I need to get. And this is where we get the term Reagan Democrats, because that Morning in America, that resonated with those optimistic people in the Democratic Party that said, okay, I'm going to vote for this guy because I want to be optimistic about the future. So it is actually kind of brilliant. So when the Democrats do it, they're just preaching to the choir. But when the Republicans do it, man, it's like unstoppable. Like I don't know that there is, like, how do you reverse that though? How do the Democrats like pull from Republican voters? Because if they start appealing to we're going to get ISIS, and I mean, their voters are just going to stay home. They're going to be like, fuck that. I hate war. Right. I mean, it's a difficult, like the Republicans are at a structural advantage here, it would seem.
Yeah, and I think they tried to walk that line at their convention. The Democrats did.
They did, didn't they? Yeah.
Like when George Allen, the general, was speaking.
I know. Everyone was like, he's fucking crazy.
Yeah, he was giving this barn burner of a speech about how America kicks ass. And a bunch of the Bernie people started chanting, "No more war." I don't know if they're Bernie people. That's not necessarily fair, but I'm pretty sure they were.
That's okay. Yeah, I am too.
and like then the crowd just goes, "USA, USA." This is a very different part. It seems to be a very different party than the one that nominated George McGovern in 1972. Like one that's not afraid to employ the more bellicose, more belligerent rhetoric. That's I think one thing that's different now is in 1980, Morning in America, the world, we lived in a very binary world. It was us versus the Soviet Union. So saying we live in a dangerous world back then means the Soviets are dangerous. And so you can be optimistic about America. We need to stick together in order to persevere in this dangerous world. Whereas
we're a common enemy. Yeah.
Whereas now in the dangerous world is, the bad actors are diffuse. They're everywhere. There's crime in the streets. There's terrorism abroad. There's China stealing shit or whatever the fuck it is Trump thinks China does. There's the enemies everywhere. And so we need to bunker down. Whereas the Democrats want to unify their rainbow coalition against white cisgender men like us.
Yeah, common. There's a really good saying. It's called "Common enemies create common ground." Like there really is no common ground until you have a common enemy. The problem that we have now in today's politics is that none of us have fucking common enemies. Like the Republicans have completely different enemies than the Democrats. So until we have that common enemy, like September 11th created a tiny moment of where we all felt like Americans together,
Mm-hmm.
but it just didn't last long. And now, man, it's tough. It's almost like the common enemy for Republicans is the liberals, and
Yeah.
the common enemy for the liberals is Donald Trump. Like we need to come. We actually have to get shit done together. We have to come together sooner or later. So, you want to move on to 4?
Sure.
Okay, that's me to you, right?
Yep.
Is Donald Trump the next Adolf Hitler? Did Hillary Clinton murder Vince Foster? Who is likely to be the next Antichrist? Is it Donald or Hillary? Or maybe it's both. Didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I didn't know there could be two. But okay, so Donald Trump is next. No, is way worse than Hitler. Hillary Vince Foster herself and ate the carcass. And neither of them can be Antichrist because Barack Obama already is that. So there you go.
They buried Vince Foster, though, I think in Washington, D.C. So she had to actually go back and dig his ass up to eat the carcass, which I think that's ballsy.
Yeah, it is.
That is presidential.
Yeah, I respect her more now, even knowing that. So there was a real question in there somewhere, wasn't there?
Well, my reason for saying it is, okay, all I'm seeing on the liberal side is fucking like literally it ranges from Donald Trump like just coming out and saying it. Yeah, Donald Trump, he's going to be like a dictator, dude. It's going to be concentration camps for Muslims and gay people and fucking everyone the liberals want to protect. Like they pretty much feel that. And on the right, man, Hillary Clinton, she's a criminal, man. She belongs in jail. Hillary for prison. Like, so these stories they're designed to destroy all reasonable debate. I wonder, what do we do with these? Like, how do we fight this? How do we fight this bullshit?
So I
mean, there are people that hate me just because I'm saying I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. That's how fucking bad it is.
Sure. It's easy to do the symmetry thing. And to a certain extent, I think you're right. Okay, the way I see it is I don't think they'll be equal as presidents. I really do think there's a better choice here. I said I voted for Gary Johnson, but if I had to vote for one of these two, I would vote for Hillary Clinton, hands down. And it's because, okay, I do believe that she's a rent-seeking politician. And that's one of the worst accusations made about her, that it isn't like Vince Foster, like you said, that she's in it for her own enrichment, which is not uncommon from a lot of politicians we've had. The worst thing I think is true about Donald Trump is possibly that he's sociopathic and a pathological liar, but more so that he's just utterly incompetent. He doesn't know how to run things.
All three of those things.
Yeah. He doesn't have, as much as I think he will erode our institutions, he can't round up all Muslims. He's not even going to be able to build his fucking wall that he wants to build. He's not going to be able to do so much of the shit that people think he will. So I agree with you on that. But I do think there's a better choice here. I mean, like, so there's a way of cutting through this bullshit and looking at it more objectively. Now, how do we actually have that conversation? I don't think we can have that. It certainly is not going to happen over Facebook. It's not going to happen over Twitter. But that's really the hyperbolic rhetoric is what wins the day, to say it. And that wins through this nonsense. It's what am I trying to fucking say here? The hyperbolic rhetoric that creates so much noise is how we have a national conversation. And that's why you see what you see.
Hillary is definitely the safer choice for me. I mean, Hillary will likely continue to try to push the country in a progressive direction ever so slightly and slowly.
Yep.
Donald Trump, I mean, I lived through the Reagan era, right? I remember when Nancy Reagan was president for 2 years because Ronald Reagan had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've suffered through incompetent presidents before. I don't know that Donald Trump is maniacal. I mean, he's talked about sealing off our borders from Muslims. He didn't talk about locking them up and chopping their heads off. He did talk about going after the families of like known terrorists, which is not great. But I mean, obviously, we have a president now who has drone strike the shit out of American citizens, right?
Yeah.
Because they were overseas. So I mean, sure, when Barack Obama does it, you know, we like Barack Obama, he's on our side. But when Donald Trump does it, oh my God. Or just when Donald Trump says, hey, we have to go after their families, it's unforgivable. Oh my God, he's gonna be like Adolf Hitler. So I don't know. It's just, I don't like that shit. I don't like the fact that like, also just even us having this conversation, just like talking about these people as if the world is not gonna, as if we're not living on the edge of the apocalypse, seems to offend some people. And I don't, what the fuck is that?
A lot of people want to believe that they're, and I want to say end times, but that's not necessarily the case. But like, because that makes a specific religious connotation. People want to think that they're the generation that's going to end, where it's all going to end, that it happened within their lifetimes. And so I think that's part of it. People don't have the long-term perspective. They see that things are bad on many fronts, so they think it must be coming to an end. That's right. And it's that cynicism. It's a cynicism, and it's a form of narcissism, because people think they're going to have a special spot in history. Right. And I think that is certainly at play here, that apocalyptic thinking.
Gravitas towards the time that we are living in.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to move on to question number 5?
Sure. Question number 5.
Yeah.
Will Hillary's shrill voice break the glass ceiling, or will Trump's brash demeanor punch this historical election in the face? I think it already has. Could either the progressive or conservative movements be helped by their respective sides losing this election?
Well, first of all, there is going to be, like, when we get to this apocalyptic fever, you can guarantee when somebody loses, there's going to be a whole lot of fucking crying going on.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot of crying. Like, you saw the Bernie people crying. That's the fucking warm-up act. Okay?
Oh, God.
If Hillary Clinton loses and it's a President Trump, after you've already said, like, guaranteed he's going to be the next Adolf Hitler, there's going to be some crying going on. And I remember when George Bush became president for the second time, everyone was going to move to Canada, right? I don't know that you'd be safe. Like, Donald Trump might invade the fucking world. I don't know that you'd be safer anywhere else. Like, what makes you think Donald Trump is not going to invade Canada? Yeah. He might, dude. They've got the fucking oil sands up there. He's already said he likes that shit. So he's a mover and shaker. You better stay right here. You'd probably be safer here. So, the historical election thing, like, answer one of the things that seems wrong to me about the Hillary Clinton campaign and pointing out the historical election stuff. I think Barack Obama was skilled enough to say things like, if I'm elected president, this will be very historic, right? Like, if like, it's not necessarily like they're trying to make it a huge historical thing that a woman was nominated to a major party, which just, I mean, on the heels of the first black president, which is truly a historical thing, you must admit.
Sure.
It, like, that is just, I mean, that's nothing, like, by comparison.
So if she is president, I do believe that it will be very historic, but I don't know that. I think she might be playing the historic card a bit early for my liking. As to will it be good? Will all this crying like that's going to take place? And there's going to be I think just as much crying on the Republican side. It might be more anger on the Republican side. I don't know that they're going to cry about it, but they're definitely going to be like the election was rigged and Hillary Clinton stole it, and how many other people has she murdered? Like there's going to be impeachment orders on the table, day one. Are they actually going to learn something from it? Maybe. I mean, after the Romney debacle, where they I don't know if you remember, Romney pretty much thought he was going to win and was carrying himself like he was going to win. I think a lot of the pundits were acting like he was going to win. So I think Romney and his whole team were truly like shocked that they didn't win.
Yep.
I think there's going to be a lot of that going on, and whenever that shock sets in, like both sides arguably have very different voters and very, very unique challenges to catering to those voters. So it's difficult. I know that after Romney had that loss, and the Republicans basically said, okay, we have to get together. We have to figure out how to beat how to appeal to minorities and embrace the demographic changes that are coming our way. I don't know that that's helpful on their side. That's their challenge, because they're very in group. I mean, it's written all over their election, right? Build a wall, ban all Muslims, black people are scary. Like they're very inviting, and the liberals are very one world, stronger together, unity. So they have very, very different challenges. I don't know that losing this election though is going to really, I don't know that either one of them are in a position to kind of take stock. What's your feeling?
So here's the arguments I've heard from people on the left and on the right who think it would be better if the person on their side, and I say that with air quotes, Democrats being progressive side, Republicans being conservative side, if their candidate lost. So I've heard liberals say that if Donald Trump becomes president and his 4 years will be such a disaster that the country will automatically come around to a much, much more progressive candidate. And like people will finally embrace progressive ideas because of
the liberals are saying that.
Yeah, some liberals I've heard say that.
Sounds delusional.
Yeah, it's to me too. Some are very pragmatic and say, better half a loaf than no loaf at all. So then go with Hillary. Half a loaf Hillary. That should be her nickname.
That should be her slogan.
Yes, half a loaf Hillary. And I've heard Republicans say sort of not necessarily the same thing about a Clinton presidency, but they've said, a lot of hardline not even hardline conservative, principled conservatives don't support Trump because he's really not that conservative. He's just loosely and recently been associated with the Republican Party. And so they think, if Donald Trump becomes president, he'll tarnish the Republican brand beyond repair. And so and people associate the Republicans with conservatives. And so the conservative movement will really get a setback because of that. There's also something to be said for the fact that we will probably have a recession within the next 4 years. And because voters are stupid, they necessarily associate the recession with the president. And so the president's party will get hurt in that manner. And there are different arguments I've heard about, like, there's more senators up for re-election in 2020, which would be the next election on the Democrat side. So if Republicans get a landslide victory against a terrible Hillary Clinton incumbency, they'll get a Senate they'll have a massive advantage in the Senate and the House, and then they'll get the White House back. So I've heard arguments like that in some way, shape, or form, having the other guy as the president for 4 years would be better in the long run for their political ends. And I don't necessarily know if I buy those arguments.
Sounds like just preparation for the long crying fest to me. I don't know.
It's a bit of wishful thinking, I believe. Like, sure, if Hillary Clinton wins, that'll be 12 straight years of a Democratic president. That's very hard to go 16. That hasn't happened in a long, long time. Not since FDR and Truman. So, will people just be that sick of the Democratic brand at that point? But and here's one thing in which it definitely won't help their respective side. There's already guaranteed to be, unless they do a lame duck appointment, there's pretty much guaranteed to be one Supreme Court justice the next president will appoint. There's probably 2 more as well. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like 80 something. Justice Anthony Kennedy is 80. The Supreme Court is aging. So they'll probably get at least 2 appointments. And so for the left, obviously they want the new one, which will give them, a 5-4 advantage. If Anthony Kennedy goes down, then they'll have a solid liberal rather than a swing vote on there. And, obviously they need to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg with a liberal justice because she's the most liberal one on the Supreme Court. However, if there's a Republican president, which would be Trump, he gets to appoint all 3 potentially. So that would give them potentially a 6-3 advantage on the Supreme Court. So that's one way in which definitely they need to win this election.
Yeah, I think a lot of first of all, we all know Trump is going to appoint his 3 kids to the Supreme Court. Right? That's basically why the conservatives don't like him, right? Because he's not a team player. Like, he's going to do what he wants to fucking do.
Someone gave him a list of Supreme Court justices.
Oh, I know, and he marched it out, and he listed them all off. I saw that he listed like 100 of them, but not like you. If he wanted to nominate his kid, he would. Don't you think?
His sister is actual circuit judge. I'm sure he would nominate her.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Get a Trump. I mean, let's face it. A Trump on the Supreme Court helps the brand, right?
Sure. Yeah, it will. Yeah.
But I'm interested in why there are a lot of intellectual and I guess you call them establishment conservatives that are not supporting Trump, and they're not supporting him because they don't see him as a conservative. Correct? I mean, he does wild, crazy things. When you like, being conservative is being conservative, right? You don't come out and like make random policies where now all of a sudden there's a religious test to get inside the United States, and if you're a Muslim, you can't come in. Mm-hmm. Right? That's not conservative. That's wackadoodle. So I understand why they're not supporting him, but at the same time, I don't know, there's no law that says the Republican Party has to be a conservative party. I mean, it doesn't need to be. The Democratic Party used to be the conservative party, and the Republican Party used to be the progressive party. So I mean, I don't know. If our system is just locked in a way that you can't really come out with, like, a third party can't get ahead. Maybe this will be the election, since everybody's saying, nobody, like, neither of these candidates are really jazzing anyone. Maybe the third party numbers will be astronomical in this election. Who knows?
Could be. There was an interesting article in The Economist, and I think there's a lot of merit to it. I'm going to try and make a video about it, that the new political realignment is not going to be left versus right. It's going to be those who want to live in an open global civilization, those who want to bunker down and close the borders and, put in protectionist policies and really just be a nationalist way of looking at the world. And I think Trump is definitely the nationalist candidate, if there ever was one. And I think that's one of the reasons he likes Vladimir Putin so much.
I talked about our political nature book, and he talks about this in that book. Like, liberals, he says, are super exogamous, I think it's called. Yeah, exactly. Where they basically they believe in that, like one world, one, we're all human beings, right? Unity. That's basically their mantra. And there's a lot of interracial marriages going on the liberal side, and he pulls it all back to evolution because I guess it's basically a reproductive strategy where if you're marrying the person that's the optimal genetic distance away from you, you're going to have the most grandchildren. And conservatives, their reproductive strategy is completely different. They're endogonous or something like.
Endogenous.
Yeah. So they're all about only marrying someone in the tribe, and keeping the tribe pure, I guess it would be the word.
Keeping the bloodlines.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, we're drifting back into that Adolf
Oh,
Hitler
God,
thing. But maybe maybe at Trump's heart he does have that. Maybe he is serious about all this stuff. I mean, I'm sure to a certain extent he is. So I mean, maybe he really is about that in group, and maybe that's like the most conservative part about him. I mean, obviously on policy he can't be conservative because he just says things that are just, I mean, they're going to change too much too quick, and the law of unintended consequences is just going to destroy us. So
But I think the thing that's interesting about this, though, is that the splits of those who want to live in an open society and those who want to live in a closed society do not necessarily break down perfectly along liberal and conservative lines. Like, look at the Bernie Sanders people. They hate free trade. They want protectionist policies that Trump wants. But look at there are Republicans like Mike Pence, oddly enough, who are for free trade and who would be in favor of the TPP. Hillary says she doesn't like the TPP. I don't believe her, and I'm hoping she does because I'm a free trader. And then there are people on the left too.
Free trade is different though than like letting the Muslims in.
No, but
like stay over there and we'll trade with you is a little bit different than like, hey, come on over and live with us.
No, but okay, the protectionist people say things like "Buy American." They want
yeah.
They believe that protectionist policies help us here, whereas free traders they want to live in a more prosperous world overall.
You're definitely right that it doesn't break down along clean lines.
And on immigration too, especially less here, but more over in Europe, there are traditional liberals who aren't exactly pro-immigration, whereas there are economic conservatives who are like, "Hey, we get a lot of benefits from this." So that again, that's less true here, but that's more true in Europe.
So you want to move on to number 6?
Sure.
Number 6. Me to you. Hillary smiles and points like a 4th grader on her 10th Mountain Dew, while Donald scolds like an angry gym teacher busting vandals in a parking lot. In these trying times, who seems like the more competent leader, Trump or Hillary?
Well, given that I was one of those vandals in the parking lot getting scolded by Mr. Trask, the gym teacher.
So you've seen that face. You notice when Trump comes out, that's like the face that he does.
Yeah.
He's like, yes.
He definitely gets the pomp and circumstance down of being president. Like when I think it's his experience with professional wrestling. That
it's an act.
Yeah, exactly. And this is marketing. He gets the look down of like, I'm serious. I'm here.
That's his blue steel.
Yeah, exactly. As far as who would be the more competent leader, that's easy. It's Hillary Clinton. She actually knows things. Do you like?
But her look though is completely non-competent though. I mean, she's
got that goofy
looks like a crazed 10th grader.
Yeah, and she always when she comes out, she always points at people and gives them the thumbs up. It's like, oh my god, and her.
It's so wrong.
Yeah, she does not give the. Apparently in small contexts, she does very well. Apparently a lot of people are like, wow, she's so smart and she's very competent. But she's just not the type of person who gives a barn burner speech in front of an arena. That's not her thing. So, and And Trump definitely wins the more seems like a competent leader. This man has no substance to him, but he's got everyone convinced that he's a genius. And really all he's good at is marketing.
Have you read Blink, the book Blink, Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
Because he talks in there about some president that was probably the worst president in American history, and how he basically just got elected because he looked the part. He was taller, better looking, he looked more competent, and people elected him because he looked competent, but he was really just a terrible, terrible leader. And I think there's a lot of parallels going on here. I mean, Hillary to me doesn't look competent. I'm with you that she is far more competent and that she is going to be a better president than Donald Trump is going to be. But Donald Trump just instinctively knows, to look presidential when he comes out. And, as long as I think his downfall might be that he keeps opening his mouth and saying stupid shit, which kind of blows the whole competency thing out of the water. Yeah. But I mean, just on looks alone, I think Trump has a much better chance of winning than Hillary. And I know everyone's going to say that that's completely sexist, but it is what it is.
No, I mean, it's not just looks either. It's the presence he has.
Yeah, he's gravitas.
Those videos you sent me, the charisma on command, he really nails down what Trump does in communication and what, that he gets people to think that he's a great leader, whereas Hillary Clinton just doesn't have that down. I just don't think it comes intuitively to her, like it did her husband, like it did Barack Obama, like it does Donald Trump.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe Hillary is not super good at reading her audience. I think that might be part of it, because it just seems like she's out of sync with her audience to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. She needs a better speech coach. Like, she yells into a microphone. And the whole reason you have a microphone is so you don't have to yell into it.
Really?
Yeah. Remember what? Rewind the show and see when my audio levels were super loud. Like, I was sitting way too close to the microphone and turn them down. So.
Yeah. Hillary definitely. I mean, you see in Barack Obama, he does this all the time. Someone will yell out in the audience and he'll react and react sincerely. And Trump does it as well. I mean, sometimes Trump is like, okay, I'll pay for your legal fees if you beat the shit out of that guy, which is not necessarily the best response, right? But it is authentic. I'm trying to remember if I've ever heard Hillary do that. I'm sure she has. I'm not remembering it, but.
Well, and part of it is, for so long, since her husband ran for president, she's been scrutinized so heavily. The press does not like her and has not always been fair to her. And so I think she's very self-conscious about what she does, and that's why she comes across as so calculated, which is ironic because then she gets critiqued on not being that calculated. Is part of that because she's a woman? Sure. I think part of it's just because she does have an annoying voice and an annoying laugh. And it's unfair that works against her, but it's the way people, it's the way people think. I was listening to Hugh Hewitt on being interviewed by David Axelrod. Do you know who Hugh Hewitt is?
I don't.
He's a talk radio guy, so he's a conservative, but he's very smart. He said something that was really interesting. He said one of the big reasons why there's predominantly only men in talk radio is because of the pitch of their voice. For whatever reason, people don't like hearing women talk as much, even though there are lots of smart conservative women who would be perfectly good. There's only like one AM radio woman, which is Laura Ingraham. He said it's because of the pitch of their voice. So that's not fair, but again, that's how the world works. And Hillary Clinton is at a disadvantage that way.
Yeah, it's amazing that she's made it as far as she has being at that disadvantage.
You all right there? In a way, it does show that she's a very impressive person, because the fact that she's able to achieve as much in spite of being shrill and annoying.
Dinesh D'Souza would say basically that Hillary chose the right pitch man, then it was all Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it could be. That's what that's what he said to Dave Rubin, I think. I don't know if you saw that interview.
He said it in a number of books as well, so it's like his go-to move.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you like to make any closing arguments?
Vote for Gary Johnson. That's the only way forward.
Now, are you really going to say that? I mean, there might be someone, like, we don't have many listeners, but there might be one person in a swing state you could potentially throw this away.
First of all, no, we don't have enough people listen to us. And
yeah, you're right. Vote for Gary Johnson. Vote for Gary Johnson. Vote for I can't remember my
Jill Stein.
Vote for Jill Stein. Exactly.
I think most of our listeners are fans of yours, not mine. I see the comments. Who's that fucking idiot you're talking to? Okay, but the thing about Gary Johnson is, we talk about how policy doesn't drive elections, which is unfortunate. Gary Johnson has the only real healthcare policy that will fix our nation's healthcare system. Donald Trump doesn't have a policy. Hillary Clinton is
what? Repeal and replace isn't a policy?
No, nor is we're going to build on Obamacare. That's not a policy either.
Oh my God, that was actually pretty good. You actually did her voice very good. Do that again.
We're going to build on Obamacare. Join us. Join us.
All right. If you don't hate us already, please subscribe. If you do hate us, you can hate watch. Please subscribe. Leave a comment, share this video. We will be clipping the videos later on in the week, and I'm still I don't want to put videos out on Monday and Tuesdays are terribly slow days on YouTube, so we put our videos out later in the week, but we have still some free Milo videos going out.
Cool.
And always remember, I mean, there's been enough of these fuck ups throughout political campaign history that they know, like I think Al Gore did a bunch of sighing in some debates between him and Bush that really hurt him a lot. So now I believe like the campaign managers are on that shit. They're like, mute that fucking mic when my candidate is not talking. So they have ways of compensating for that. I wouldn't be surprised if they have microphones in the crowd so the TV audience can hear the reaction of the crowd. But I didn't hear much reaction at the Democratic convention to Hillary. And maybe I am just a white cis male. Maybe that's why it doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel inspired. I think she is saying a lot of the correct things to appeal to me, but they're just not appealing to me. So
I don't think that it's because you're a white cis male, even though you are. She is truly a poor public speaker. And, if you watch my channel, you know that I'm not the greatest public speaker. If you watch this channel.
You just heard me murder reading those fucking questions. So I'm terrible.
The difference is you and I aren't running for president. And like it or not, a quality you need to be president or, to win election, I should say, more so, is to be a good public speaker. Now, maybe she can win without it. I'm sure, it looks like she's going to win as of now anyways, but she's just a bad public speaker. And shut up. That's not because she's a woman, and it's not me being sexist. There are plenty of good women public speakers. Sarah Palin, before she completely lost her mind, was a good speaker, even though she was stupid and everything. But Hillary just, she sounds like she's reading off and like she just cannot deliver a good performance in that regard. Now, if you, as far as who had the better convention, most people.
Your mic is a little hot, just to let you know.
Okay. I'll back up from it. How about that?
That works.
Okay. Most people in the press, regardless liberal or conservative, basically agree that the Democrats had a better run convention, which was interesting because Trump said that, it's
who had the zanier convention. How long will Hillary go before calling Trump the next Adolf Hitler? Will Donald Trump
leak a sex tape as his October surprise? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, find the answers to these and all of your other pressing election questions right now on Supervillains Anonymous. Where's the music, Steve? Come on, what's going on? So we actually tried to get some we had a couple. I don't know how many clips did you have, Steve? I had one.
I had one, but I was planning on having three, and I'm glad I didn't fuck around with the other two because it didn't work.
So we tried to get some clips going for Google Hangouts is basically how we're doing this, and we couldn't get the sound to work, so we ixnayed on the clips. But do you have any announcements, Steve?
No, I don't.
I have a couple.
Let's hear them.
Subscribe to our channel, damn it. We're still in the teens. 15 subscribers.
Oh, nice.
I keep getting subs on my other channel. I stopped. Now we're doing this on our new channel, obviously. So subscribe, comment, share, do it. It's your civic duty.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. Tell them to subscribe. So we have 6 very interesting and compelling questions this week about the Trump versus Hillary 2016 phenomenon that everyone is talking about. I watched a bunch of Young Turks coverage of stuff this morning.
I'm sure it was riveting as usual. Did anyone spit in Alex Jones's face?
No, not yet. Well, maybe, I don't know. They could have happened and I just didn't see it. So let's read our questions. What do you think?
Do it.
All right. Number 1, who had the better convention, Republicans or Democrats? Number 2, voter turnout. Does Trump have the winning ground game? Number 3, am I reading the wrong questions? I think I am.
Oh my.
No, I'm not. Okay. Number 3, the Democrat
Going to be the greatest show you've ever seen and you would think because that's his shtick. He's a promoter. He puts on events. They would have a super duper convention, but it was anything but. In fact, the week after he tried to distance himself from it, he basically said,
hilarious.
he's like, I had nothing to do with that. I just came in the last minute. But it was.
He obviously didn't learn anything from George Bush lowering expectations, did he?
No, he didn't. But yeah, it was just. It was like it was. As far as conventions go, it wasn't very good. Whereas the Democrats did everything by the book, and the press is applauding them for that. Now, what we've learned from this election is that you can do pretty much everything by the book right, and Donald Trump will still probably beat you. So,
oh my God,
does it matter that the convention, the press thinks the Democrats had a better convention? I don't think so. Now, if you're looking for substantive solutions at a convention, then you come to the wrong place. But even in that regard, like Donald Trump's convention was lacking. They didn't list like any of his accomplishments except for I think his son Eric Trump talked about like, oh well, he worked on this project and it went well. It was just like speaker after speaker after speaker saying like, this is a problem and Donald Trump will fix it. How he's going to fix it, we don't know, but he's going to fix it. They didn't even give an idea of what a fixed version of that thing would look like. Like, okay, at the Democratic convention, they don't give specifics like, here's the bill, we're going to do this and this and this and this and this and this. But they offer what they say healthcare is broken. Well, what does fixed healthcare look like? It means we have a public option.
They did come out strong against NRA, and they did also protect Planned Parenthood. They did have some specifics in there.
But as far as like an actual like, I don't know, maybe that's still like very shallow to me. Isn't like a policy discussion is very deep, shouldn't it be? But that's not what a convention is for.
No,
so I wouldn't necessarily hold that against them. But here's the thing. One thing that people said was the Republican convention was very sour and very
right. So I think maybe I don't know that Hillary is like the criminal that they're making her out to be, but I don't know what they're going to lock her up for. But
And then obviously we have to talk about lying Ted and not endorsing, which is just funny as fuck. I think he got booed off the stage.
He did.
So that's what I want to talk about on the Republican side. On the Democrat side, we have don't feel the burn, fear Trump, right? Which is basically what you can synthesize this whole Bernie phenomenon down to. It's like sooner or later you got to come home to Kansas because Trump is a maniac. You hate him. We hate him. Let's all stick together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did like Tim Kaine. I had never heard of. Like he seemed like a total milquetoast pick to me, just because I never heard him speak or anything. But I was actually super impressed with Tim Kaine. I thought he did a great job, and it's only 95% because I'm a white cis male. So and Hillary, I thought was uninspiring as usual because I'm a white cis male. So everything she says just doesn't resonate with me at all.
I found it unbelievably creepy that she kept going, "Join us, join us. If you want this, then join us." She kept saying "join us" like it's a fucking cult.
The camera is so fucking up in her grill that you can see every single detail. And she really, to me, looks like she's reading. First of all, I can see her eyes moving, like her head is moving in one direction and her eyes are doing the tennis match. And she has this way of nodding her head, kind of like an animatronic bubblehead doll, where she just like, yes, that's the point where you're supposed to be cheering, but nobody is like cheering. It's really bizarre. So her reactions seem rehearsed to me, and they don't seem like they're playing off of the crowd. And it could be TV. It could be that the crowd there, is not mic'd correctly. I don't know how they even do those things, but maybe she is responding to things that are actually taking place that we're not privy to as viewers. And I know in the TV age, the Democratic convention was optimistic and patriotic, while the Republican convention was negative all around. Why is this? Number 4, is Donald Trump the next Adolf Hitler? Did Hillary Clinton murder Vince Foster? Who is more likely to be the next Antichrist, Don or Hill? Number 5, will Hillary's shrill voice finally break the glass ceiling? Or will Trump's brash demeanor punch this historical election in the face? Could either the progressives or conservative movement be helped by their respective sides losing this election? Because one of them will lose. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary, number 6, Hillary smiles and points like a 4th grader on her 10th Mountain Dew, while Donald scowls like an angry gym teacher busting vandals in a parking lot. Is in these trying times, who seems more the more competent leader, Trump or Hillary? And I murdered that question. Hopefully we'll do it better the second time.
I'm sure we will.
So shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
All right. That's you to me. So
okay,
ask away.
Who had the better convention, the Republicans or the Democrats?
Well, for me, being the liberal scum that I am, I thought the Democrats had a better convention because it resonated with me. But on the other hand, I think the Republicans actually did have a decent convention in just Donald Trump spoke, and he sounded a lot more presidential than I think the left is giving him credit for. But the things that I want to talk about basically with the Republicans is I think plagiarism is always interesting to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Make America safe again, make America work again, make America hate again. The only reason the only one that they seem to have any details on is the hate again, right? I mean, how exactly are we going to make America safe again? How are we going to make America work again? So we're very light on the details there. There's always fashionable lock Hillary up.